Okay, hi, my name is Cynthia Becker, and I am the host of the show, the reality series CPS the Horror Stories. And today I am interviewing Bobbie. Bobbie, I think that you are muted.
I'm unmuted now.
Perfect. Okay, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Bobbie. I'm from Michigan. Tired,
Okay, what about for work? What do you do for work?
Um, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a piercing boutique.
You have a what? A boutique?
A piercing boutique, Divas Designs.
Awesome. What do you have there?
I do piercings, tattoos, hair, nails.
I had asked, what do you specifically do there at the store?
I do everything. I'm the owner.
So do you tattoo?
Yes, piercings, hair, nails, eyelashes, microblading, um, jack of all trades.
That's awesome. Now tell me about, actually, before I go on to the next question, where do you live?
I live in Pittsburgh, but I'm from Michigan.
Okay. And how many children do you have?
I have 5 and a grandson.
Wow, you don't look old enough to have grandkids yet.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell me about your 5 kids.
I have a 17-year-old who is a single mother of 1 and 1 on the way, thanks to CPS. Um, I have 15. I have a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old.
Wow, you have your hands full.
And I have a 2-year-old grandson.
Oh. So, Bobbie, tell me how CPS came into your life, when they first came in.
Okay, what happened was we were living in Detroit, Michigan. The DHS worker who was a next door neighbor, which should have been against CPS protocol, was allowed to handle my case. She had my daughter lie and say that she was sexually abused. At the time, my daughter was 6 years old, and the story she supposedly told CPS was that my husband had sex with her and ejaculated on her. In those words, they took my daughter from school. They told me they weren't taking my other children. Told me to come into the Friends of the Court, which is the courthouse for family court in Michigan. And I left that courthouse with none of my children at that point.
Now, how did, you had said that she told CPS that, but how did she meet somebody from CPS?
Like I said, the CPS, the worker that took the case, that handled the case, that was involved with the case, the same worker, she was my next door neighbor.
And did she go to the kids' school, or
Like I said, they took my oldest daughter at the time. She was 6. They took her from school.
But
And
how
then
did they show up to the school?
they claimed that they got a call stating that DHS was informed of sexual abuse.
And who made that claim? And how did they even get that claim? Did your daughter go?
They say that my daughter said it, but the words that she used at 6 years old, attorneys, detectives, everybody was puzzled because a child at 6 years old, to just come out and say, my daddy's sexually abusing me and he ejaculated on me. My daughter didn't say that.
Yeah, that's quite a word.
Those are the words that CPS said that my daughter used.
Okay. So CPS was called. and then they pulled your daughter from school.
Yeah.
And she's the oldest, correct?
At the time, yes. She was the oldest, yes.
Okay. And so that's about first grade?
Yep, she was first grade.
So were the other children at home with you?
Yes, my other children at the time, my youngest at the time was 8 months old. He was also taken. Was only probably a year and a half old. She was also taken. She was about 3. She was also taken. But they had me bring the children to DHS and took them. They did not come to me and take them. They told me that they weren't taking my children, said that I just needed to come pick up my other daughter, the one that they took from school. And when they got there, they took everyone.
Wow, okay. So did they give you a warrant or anything like that?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They just told me that there was a permanent custody petition and they were they were told to remove my children.
How did they, so they go to the school, they take your daughter, and then they call you and ask you to come in and meet with them?
Yes.
Okay.
And I asked them what was going on. They told me that they couldn't inform me of what happened over the phone. They needed to meet with me in person. So I went straight to DHS from home. When I got there, they said that they needed to take my other children in a back room, and I never saw them after that until 2 years later when I regained custody.
So during that time, how many times did you go to court?
I went to court every 60 days for a whole 2 years.
Did you have a case plan?
A case plan.
Where they basically tell you these are things that you need to complete?
Yes.
What were those things?
Those things were to have drug and alcohol screenings every week. I completed those. Never had an issue with drugs. Drugs was never a part of the allegation. To divorce my husband at the time. I divorced
your husband?
Yes. The one that my husband was being accused of sexually assaulting my 6-year-old daughter.
Did you ever discuss that information with him? Was there any abuse founded?
When I contacted Ronell about the abuse, Ronell said that he didn't have an attorney. He would never sexually abuse his daughter, no one else's daughter. He has a perfect wife. What would he want with a child? And that's the last thing I've heard from Ronell from that point. After that, he was arrested.
His perfect wife, was that you?
Yes.
Okay. Did you guys have a good marriage?
We had a good marriage, good relationship. He was not Anita's biological father. He adopted her once we married. He taught Anita how to walk. He taught Anita how to use the potty. Like I said, I'm physically disabled. I'm paralyzed from the waist down on the right side of my body. Doctor's appointments, he took her to all doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, eye doctor appointments. I've never, ever been able to understand how they got away with what they got away with.
When did you become disabled?
I've been disabled since I was 6 years old.
Okay. And the children are yours biologically?
Yes, they're mine biologically.
Okay. Now, did they do any type of testing to prove that she had?
They say that they did, but I've never seen any reports from medical or anything. I asked to see the medical documents to support that she was sexually abused. They told me under Michigan law, they don't have to show me anything. It's their word against mine.
Did you talk to her about it?
I talked to my daughter about it. My daughter even recanted the story to CPS and said that she was forced to say what she said by
Now,
the DCFS worker.
did you ever get to the bottom of why anything was said in the first place?
My daughter, we have a good rapport now. She doesn't live with me still to this day, but we have a good rapport. My daughter says still to this day that DHS promised her things that I couldn't give her, promised her a better home, promised her a better education, and told her that if she came with them, that, in Detroit, most people in Detroit, they live in poverty. We weren't one of those families. My husband was an owner-op for Swift Transportation, which is a trucking company.
Yes, I have a friend that works for them.
And that was my other thing. Now, he's on a road. He's over the road. He's regional. So he's never home. So where did he have time to sexually abuse my daughter?
Yep. That's crazy.
He was over the road. He wasn't regional. He wasn't, he was over the road. And this particular week, this was supposed to happen, which was November 6th of 2008, which was my daughter's birthday the day before on November 5th. He was on the road.
Wow. And you had proof of all of that?
Yes, we had proof of all of that because he couldn't get an attorney. And, a lot of people do things in Michigan to kids and, they're later on found guilty. And due to the fact that he couldn't get an attorney in time, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't spoke to him since the ordeal. They told me if I didn't divorce him, I would never see my children again. They even forced me to get my tubes tied.
How did they force you to get your tubes tied?
They gave me a court order stating that if my tubes weren't tied, that my rights would be terminated for my other children.
I'm gonna write that down because I'm curious if that's even possible.
They told me if I didn't divorce my husband, I wouldn't get my children back. My son, like I said, I had a son at the time that was 8 months old, didn't have a mark or anything on his body when he was taken. When he was returned to me 2 years later, my son had cigarette burns all over his body. My son was sick.
We're going to get into that because I want to hear all about that. Now, my goodness, let me wrap my head around this for one moment. So, being that your husband drives, I assume that he was gone when all of this happened that day.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to make this phone call.
Yes.
Now, out of curiosity, being that you had to file for divorce, are you guys still together now?
No. Like I said, after this situation, we've never had any more contact because they told me if we were caught communicating, I wouldn't get my children back.
So, okay. They said that not only did you have to divorce, but you couldn't even communicate.
Right.
So, the day that you had the children removed, there wasn't a warrant, no paperwork or anything?
Nothing. I left that place without my babies, without no paperwork, without visitation for weeks.
How long before you had your first visitation, roughly?
I want to say it was about almost 3 weeks before I got a visit, initial visit. My children didn't even know who I was when I finally got to see them. My younger children, like I said, I had an 8-month-old, 1.5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. My children didn't know who I was.
Were they kept together?
No. Together. Were kept together for a short period of time. And then I want to say almost a year and a half into the case, I had my youngest son, which is the 5th. He was never bothered. They never took him. I never seen DHS, CPS, or anything about my youngest son. But when we went to court, they called him a mystery baby.
What do you mean they never took him?
They never took him. He was never a part of the case. They never brought him up. But they did try to remove him on the pretense of me not having prenatal care.
How old was okay, so did you bring him into the office when you had that appointment?
He wasn't born yet. He wasn't born until a year. Right.
Okay.
It was born it was like a year and a half into the case when my son was born.
So he's not the dad of the other kids?
No.
Okay. Sorry, just confused for a second.
Because at first, when they first came to me and said that I had to divorce my husband or I wasn't going to get my children back, one of the workers came to me and said, you know, I know they're wrong for what they're doing. I'm going to tell you, like I've told other parents in your situation, you just move on and make them think that everything's okay. But you come back later and you get them. So that's what I did. I moved on. I ended up getting into a relationship with someone else. To find out later that what they did, forcing me to get a divorce, forcing me not to have communication with my husband, was all illegal.
They made me do that too. They made me file and get divorced. My husband, I didn't mind. I was in the process anyways, but it's crazy how they do that, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so your children, did they give you the option to put your children with any family, or were they in actual foster care?
Well, they said that my husband's family couldn't take my children because he was the perpetrator.
Okay. And yours?
My family lived in Pennsylvania, so they didn't want to do an interjurisdictional case. It would have cost too much for the state of Wayne, the county of Wayne.
And why couldn't they keep them together in one foster home?
Because my daughter Zykia, she's intellectually disabled. She has Down. Anita, of course, after, you know, forcing a 6-year-old to say they've been sexually abused, showing them videos of things that they shouldn't see. My daughter developed post-traumatic stress disorder really early.
Who showed her videos?
Something they did with the children, it was called a kid talk.
Can you explain that? Who did it and what was it?
It was the county solicitor for Allegheny County who takes these kids into a back room and question them about what happened. I immediately asked them, now, are you all questioning my kids about what happened, or are you all leading my kids into saying what happened? And she told me, the sheriff turned to me and said, if you open your mouth one more time, you'll be arrested. So I just sat through the rest of the hearing and never said nothing else.
So these videos, did they play was it to kind of
coerce the children? Yes.
Yes, but also by the statement that your daughter gave, the statement, they must have had to play the video because she couldn't describe it well enough.
Right. Exactly. That's the exact words they said, that she couldn't. They only showed her the video because she couldn't articulate what happened to herself. That was the words they used.
Isn't that a big clue right there? And almost proof that she was forced to say it, because my goodness, you can take 2 stuffed animals and say, here, show me what happened.
And for a 6-year-old to say, my daddy ejaculated on me.
So when they did this video, what did they say she said happened?
She said that the DHS worker said that my daughter said that her dad came in the room, took off his trousers, which we don't use trousers in my home.
The word? You don't use the word?
The word trousers.
But that's what your daughter said?
My daughter said, my daddy entered my room, took off his trousers, put his penis in my mouth, and white stuff came out, which he ejaculated on my face and on my chest. So I asked, I said, well, you know, when you all interview children on sexual assault allegations, you all record these videos. Where's the video where my daughter said this? They don't have to give me anything because they're considering terminating my rights.
But they recorded the video. They did record this.
I didn't see it. My attorney's never seen it. I've even had an attorney tell, well, she wasn't the attorney. She was supposed to be my attorney, but come to find out, she was the attorney for the children. They sent the attorney for the children to talk to me, which is also illegal. So all the things that I should have been speaking to my attorney about, I told this lady everything that she shouldn't even know.
Okay, so the children get removed. They get put in foster care. Remind me again what was on your case plan of things you had to do. You said drug testing. Was it random drug testing?
Weekly drug screenings.
But random?
Yes.
Where you
I had to call in every Friday and go to I forget the name of the place, a Quest location, do the urine.
Just every Friday?
Every Friday I had to call in. Some Fridays they'll tell me I don't have to, or so like if I call in and say, hey, I'm sick, I can't make it, they classify my drug screen as a dirty.
That's interesting. I mean that you only call in on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what else? Did you have to take any classes?
I had to do parenting classes, which I was already in parenting classes because I don't know if it's like that in California, but when you have a child with intellectual disabilities, or if you have a child that's born with Downs or brittle bone disease, you have to take parenting class before you can remove your child from the hospital, especially if your child comes home on a breathing machine. So
I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Right. So I've already had all the certificates that I needed for parenting, but what they tried to charge me with was failure to protect and neglect.
Now, you had said, okay, was the daughter that has these, what did you refer them as? Intellectual
disabilities.
Okay. Is she the one that this happened to?
No.
Okay.
My daughter, well, the daughter, she now has, she's been diagnosed since the incident. She's got PTSD, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenic disorder, all types of things. But they started diagnosing her with those things when she was in foster care. So when I got my children back and I had my own psychiatrist and psychologist interview my children, they said there was absolutely nothing wrong with them except for the PTSD and anxiety.
Who said that there's nothing wrong with her?
The Allegheny Center for Traumatic Stress here in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
That's where I take them now for their mental health. And the ADHD that Michigan ruled out on, they said it was bull crap. They said when the children go into the system in Michigan or anywhere, they want to load these children with medication to keep them to do what they want them to do.
So did they say when you, the daughter, what is her name? The one that has the, did they retest for the things that you've had her tested for?
Here in Pittsburgh, yes, she's been retested. And like I said, the only thing that comes up for my children for mental health is that post-traumatic stress disorder, which they say it could come from the abuse that they suffered while in foster care, and the anxiety. When, say like if the police ride past my house, my children go into severe panic attacks. If you say, oh, I'm calling CPS on you, like if one of the neighbors say that to my children have seizures.
Legitimate seizures?
Like fall out, shake, vomit, defecate. Or you know how parents, you know, when they get frustrated with their kids that been in the system and they say, hey, how, like I got neighbors that tell their kids all the time, I'll place you for adoption. When my kids hear other parents say that to their kid, my kids get sick. My kids try to do anything and everything to keep that parent from giving their children away.
Yeah. I understand. People irritate the crap out of me when they say like, oh, you're babying your kids. I'm like, I don't think you understand the trauma that they still suffer from because of what happened. It doesn't like go away or get less. It's there. And like you said, at the mention of something, they, you know, instantly get sick.
I don't know if you've seen some years ago back in 20, let's see, they were taken in 08, 09, 2010, the protest in Michigan where the mother had gotten sick and DHS took the children from her and the children were murdered by the foster parents.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, we were a part of that protest. We were a part of that protest, and you know, things need to change for us as parents.
Yes.
Things need to change for us as parents because there are parents that do what they need to do, and there's parents that aren't abusive. You know, we know there's parents that know the difference in discipline and abuse, and they need to let us parent our children.
Yes.
Having us afraid to parent, it's not good for the children. It's not good for society.
Right.
Because they're turning these children into monsters, and it's unfair to these babies who have potential.
Yeah. Are you able, I think you might be doing something, but when you're done, are you able to put your camera back up so we can see your face? Okay.
I can.
So now tell me, so they get taken, parenting classes, drug tests. Is there any other things you had to do in your case plan?
I was still forced to provide for my children, even though they weren't in my care.
Like child support?
Clothing, shoes. Some of the foster parents would never show up if I didn't have something for the children.
Now, were your visits supervised?
Yes, all the time. A sheriff and a worker from the foster care agency.
How often were your visits?
They started out once a month. As we got further in the case, they got more frequent.
Once a month?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And how long were they?
When they first started, I had 15 minutes. After the first 6 months of the 15-minute visits, they went to 2-hour visits.
Only 15 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And were all of your children together?
Well, there would be times where, like, for weeks at a time.
Why?
The parent would say they had ear infections, or one time was supposedly had to have tubes put in his ears. But if he had tubes put in his ears, that's same day surgery. So that next day should have been available for a visit. So that next day, from the visit being canceled and rescheduled to the next day, she still turned around and said that she couldn't bring the kids because both of the kids were running temperatures. So when I finally did get to see my son and daughter, they both had cigarette burns on their back, on their face, under the eye. So when I questioned about it, they told me if I questioned anything else that was going on in the foster parents' homes, I wouldn't be able to see my children at all.
Who said that to you?
Derek Forbers, which was the DHS case manager.
So, the CPS case manager?
Mm-hmm.
So, like the social worker supervisor?
Care case manager, I'm sorry.
Would that be the equivalent to a social worker supervisor?
Yeah.
Okay. So this manager or supervisor told you if you question
the children about what's going on in the homes, I wouldn't get to see them anymore.
Did you take pictures of any of these things?
Well, during visits, we had to lock up our cellular devices.
Yeah, I had to do the same. Wasn't sure if it's the same in every state or not.
There was even a time where I showed up at a visit and I had, that's at the time they had the BlackBerry phone. You remember you used to be able to put the string through your BlackBerry and put it around your neck?
I think so.
Okay, well, I had that phone and I had the Nextel Turk phone, the one with the walkie-talkie.
Yes, yes, yes.
So what I did was the one time I had a visit, and at this time I'm pregnant with my youngest son when I go in there. So you can't really tell what I have up underneath my clothes. So I said, I'm going to record the whole visit, what happens throughout the visit or whatever. And I'm recording, and the DHS case manager comes into the visit room and say, can I talk to you for a moment? They ended my visit with no explanation.
Who did it?
The DHS case manager.
But repeat that again. So you brought your phone in, but secretly.
Right. And minutes we started the visit, they come into the visiting room, they say, we need to speak with you for a moment, and terminated my visit for that day without any explanation of why, what they thought was going on. But later on, like I want to say a week and a half later, they discontinued my visits altogether until further notice, and said that they got a complaint that the sheriff left the room and I supposedly beat my daughter.
In the room?
In the room.
Aren't you being monitored by someone?
Yeah. There's an agency worker and a sheriff that monitors every visit.
I'm confused at how you can do that or even be accused of that.
I've even been accused of pinching my children. They come in with bruises on them, and I say, hey, what's this from? Days later, I get a call, your visit has been terminated for the week. You're being investigated for a child line. So it got into the point where, like, any mark or bruise on my children's body that I would find, I just write it down, the date that I seen it, what the bruise looked like. And when I seen my attorney, I give it to my attorney.
And did you have a court-appointed attorney?
No, I paid for my own attorney because the attorney that was appointed to me was also, like I said before, was also the children's attorney, which was a conflict of interest.
How is that even possible?
Illegal. They set my case. Once they returned my children, that's the other thing. When Wayne County returned my children, a lot of people have never heard of this before, but when Wayne County returned my children, they returned my children with a $25,000 check.
A hush check?
A $25,000 check.
Was it a hush check?
Yes, they told me to leave Michigan and never come back. And during the time that I was still staying in Michigan after the children were returned, I got harassing phone calls. I got followed, pictures taken. It was just a mess.
What did your hired attorney have to say about all of this going on?
Well, like I said, I didn't even get to that point. Things turned around once I started paying for my own attorney. Within 8 months of me hiring my own attorney, my children were back in my care, which was 2 years later.
8 months, you said?
Yes, I've had her for 8 months. When it reached the 8th month that she was my attorney, it reached 2 years that my children been in care.
It's very similar to my story. When I hired my own attorney, I went from having supervised visits that were being constantly manipulated and canceled and all of that stuff to immediately having unsupervised visits and overnights and then fully returned.
Oh, I've even had an overnight where the foster care case manager came to my home during an overnight visit. Well, it was a weekend visit. And said that the neighbors called and said that the children were unattended and they removed the children off the visit on just that.
How were they unattended? How was there proof of that?
There was none. I'm the only parent in the home, and it's 4 children and an infant in my home. The allegations were that I was going to the bar, leaving the children in the house. I don't even drink. And none of the allegations against me or my family or anyone has ever been any drugs, alcohol. It's just been what that DHS worker told my daughter to say when she was 6.
So besides the cigarette burns and all of that stuff, was there any other abuse that happened to the children?
Sexual abuse. My son, like I said, he was 8 months old when they removed him from my care, 2 years old when he returned home.
8 months old. Was this wasn't the one that you were pregnant with, correct?
No.
Okay. And was that one ever removed?
My youngest child, no.
Okay.
My youngest child was never removed.
So,
but at the time, my 8-month-old, that was removed when my 6-year-old was removed.
Got it.
When, like I said, he was 8 months old when he was removed, 2 years old when he returned. My son had marks and scars literally all over his body. He looks like one of them children, you know how way back when in the slave days when they used to kidnap the slaves and beat them? That's how my son returned to me. There's not a mark, there's not a spot on my son's body to this day that doesn't have a mark.
How old is he right now?
He's 12.
And the scars are still there.
The scars are still there. Sexual abuse, he suffered sexual abuse. And the only reason why we know, because like I said, he was 2 years old when he was returned. The same day he was returned, I had a Maltese, little miniature Maltese.
Yeah.
My son, 2-year-old son, takes the broom and shove it in the cat's butt and start making crazy noises. My daughter Ranasia, who was also in this Petway home, well, this home, it's called the Petway home, it's the facility.
They were together?
Yes.
Does
and
what?
So at the DHS and CPS, they said that my kids were lying and they would not remember nothing like that.
But can you be, I know this is difficult, can you be more specific as far as what the abuse was?
If you don't mind, I could call my son to the phone. He'll tell you exactly what happened to him.
Yes, I just want to make sure that you sign a waiver giving permission.
You know what, my children are so, you know what, we started a couple months ago, which I was told I had to take it down because I had to go through different security measures and everything before I can do it. But I don't know if you ever heard of Getting Even with CPS?
No.
That's us.
Let me write that down.
There was a YouTube video, Getting Even with CYF. They took it down back in 2014.
Okay, I'll look into that. But I would actually like, you have full custody of your kids, correct?
Yes.
And your case is closed.
Mm-hmm.
I still want to finish this, but let's set up an interview where I interview them.
Yep, you can do that.
So go ahead and tell me, and then he can tell me as well, but you tell me what you remember. What was the abuse?
Okay, the first part of I'll start with because she was while they went into system. Sure. Anita, she was 6 years old. My daughter was put in the oven. My daughter has, hold on, I'm gonna turn the camera so you can see. 1 second. Okay, this part of the leg.
Yes.
On that part of the leg, my oldest daughter has burns that resemble wood burner. She said that she was put in it to keep from telling CPS that it never happened. The abuse never happened at home.
Was it? I mean, it wasn't on. Not that it matters, but
yes, it was on. My baby had burns from her like below the back of the kneecap, all the way up to her tailbone.
I just want to hold on because I want to look up for everybody.
Yes, it looked like pipes that go up through the floor, and a radiator sits on those.
No, I'm really unfamiliar. Let me pull the picture back up and then you can explain.
Sure, actually, I can show you a picture. Because I got the same exact heaters in my house that I have. That's a lot better. You see that?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to go show you the other component to it. It's a little different than the one that was in my house. But this thing here, there's another piece over here down in the floor. When it's on,
yes.
You see that black thing down in the floor? Are you able to see that?
Point to the direction. Okay, yes.
Here, I'll get closer. It's
on
like,
the ground.
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
Now there's some, it's like a box that lifts up out of the floor.
Okay.
And it has like coils on it, like a one of those heaters, space heaters.
Yes.
And my daughter has those marks all over her behind and her back.
So where was she put in it?
It opens up. It's like a It's hard to explain, but it opens up. And once you open it up, it's them coils. And the wood goes up underneath the coils.
Okay.
And she was sat on one of those.
How long was she inside?
Not sure. When I was contacted by Children's Hospital of Michigan, of Detroit, they told me because she wasn't in my care, they couldn't give me any information.
So it was, okay, so it was bad enough she had to go to the hospital.
Well, the excuse we got, children go in and out of the hospital all the time, and we take care of our own kids. We know what's going on.
And she wasn't removed out of the home after that?
Yes, she was placed in another home where abuse got worse.
Did anything happen to the people that put her in the oven?
They claim that they were terminated from being foster parents and they were supposed to be incarcerated.
Okay.
Because I was I guess they say negligent on the case. They couldn't give me any information more than they were allowed to because it was being investigated at the time.
Okay, so now she's moved elsewhere. So what happens with the abuse there?
The new house, the foster parent just outright left her at a Home Depot in Warren, Michigan.
Just left her there.
Just outright left her.
And how were you informed of this?
Days went past. It was time for a family visit. I sat at the agency, in the Center for Children agency, for about 3.5 hours. No one came out and told me that my visit wasn't going to take place. And after a while, I started getting upset. You know, somebody's going to tell me where my children are. And they haven't seen my daughter for, at that time, 2.5 days because DHS wasn't sure where she was placed because she was picked up by another county.
Now, when you had your visits, were all the kids together? They all came for the visit on the same day, same time?
Majority of the time, yes.
So you show up for a visit on this specific day and they haven't seen your daughter for 2.5 days. Now what?
Because because my other daughter wasn't there, the other children didn't have to show up for the visit because the other foster parents didn't want to do makeup visits.
So nobody comes.
Right. And it was put in a system as if I missed the visit, no one else.
Of course. So how long was she missing for? Did somebody take her?
Wayne County, not Wayne County, Warren County, Michigan, because that's the Home Depot they were at.
Okay.
So she was placed with another agency and we weren't informed, which is another form of kidnapping. Because if a child moved from one county to the next, there has to be court documents to support that.
I'm a little bit confused. Can you explain it in a different way?
Okay, what I mean by that is we're Wayne County residents. The case happened in Wayne County.
Right.
Which means my child in Michigan, if you're in Wayne County, your children remain with Wayne County residents unless they're in protective custody. My children were never in protective custody, so they were kept in Wayne County, all but Anita at this point.
Okay. So when she was left at Home Depot, did somebody from Home Depot call?
I believe the manager of Home Depot called.
Okay, at least
They
nobody
called
hit her.
they called the Wayne County Department of Human Services.
Okay. Did the family intentionally leave her?
From the complaint, the workers in a Home Depot said that they were arguing with her because she said that they weren't her mom and dad and she wasn't going.
Okay. So it was done out of like anger.
Out of spite and anger, yes.
How old was she?
She, at that point, I think she had just turned 7. I'm not sure.
So they leave her at Home Depot. The manager calls. The police or a social worker comes and picks her up. Where do they take her? Back to the family?
They took her to what is it called? Vista Maria, which is another foster care agency in Michigan.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, and I'm not sure if you're even aware, when they get moved, do they get to bring their stuff? Like, or does their stuff get left and they just go with the clothes on their back?
I'm not sure how it works, but I know anytime that my children were moved, my younger children, like I said, I was forced to buy their clothing, coats, shoes. There was one foster home where I even had to buy the foster parents' washer and dryer because they didn't have one.
Should I put on some stuff for a list of things I need? Wow. Okay. So let's.
Oh, that's not even a half of it. I even moved out of one of my houses because the foster parent that they placed one of my children with, now she has 3 children of her own. She was living in a 1-bedroom. I had a 6-bedroom. I had to move out of my house because she didn't have enough space to house my child. And she moved in my house with her kids, and I went and lived with my grandmother.
How did that happen?
It was either leave my children where, they would be safe, where the foster parent, she's one of those type foster parents that if your kids got to be in foster care, you want your kids to be able to remain in that person's care. So I did everything that I could do to keep my children with that lady until she passed away in 2012.
She died?
Yeah.
Did you get your house back?
Well, I actually ended up moving out of the state of Michigan.
Okay. So what other abuse happened?
Let's see. He was sexually abused.
How old is she?
13 now.
And how old was she when this took place?
She was when she first entered foster care, she was 3. They were in care for 2 years, so she had to be 4 turning 5 because they came home right after her 5th birthday.
Okay. And what happened with her?
She said that she was sexually abused. She said she was beat.
Who sexually abused her?
The children in the Petway home.
And what happened?
She said that the foster parents would come in from work drunk and he'd touch her, make her do things that she didn't want to do.
How old was he?
Was about 25 because he showed up at a couple visits before.
So he's an adult. He's not a child.
He's an adult, but he's a little off.
Well, yeah.
A whole lot off.
Did he molest her or rape her?
She says both things happened, but DHS refused to do anything about it. I even complained to DHS here in Pennsylvania once we moved here. They did an investigation, and DHS of Michigan claimed that they don't have any record of my children even being in foster care there.
Wow.
That's to cover up the abuse that the children suffered.
Now, have you...
That's just like right now here in Pennsylvania, because like I said, I'm physically handicapped. And my daughters, you know, after the ordeal of Michigan, you know, they developed a lot of behavioral issues. You know, they became violent children, and they would even attack me now.
Yeah.
So I had to let DHS take them, because if you run away and something happens to you, I'm going to jail because I failed to protect you.
Right.
And I asked for help over and over again. They told me there's no help for the children. There's no help. And it came to my daughter cutting me with a razor. You see that?
Yes.
My 14-year-old daughter did that with a razor.
Okay, let's pause on that. I want to get to that. I want to finish hearing the rest of what happened. And then I want to hear after you got them back. So, did you ever take your children who were sexually abused, when you got them back in your care, did you take them to a doctor to have them checked to make sure they were okay?
Yes, all 3 girls' hymens were broke.
And did they have any STDs or anything?
No.
Okay. And
But
did
all
it,
3, and their excuse was girls' hymens can be broke doing splits, cartwheels.
right? Yeah.
They even at one point in court said mom could have kicked the girls in the vagina, causing the rupture. So.
Okay. Was there, I mean, the doctor would have seen possible tearing, you know, as well. Was there any of that?
With our independent doctors said that there is scar tissue, but of the region what caused it, they can't tell because the scar tissue is so old.
Man.
And just like this attorney I have now, she says, you know, if a negligent parent is not going to go pay for attorney out of pocket, period.
Right, right.
A negligent parent is not going to call the news media when their children run away.
Now,
but those are things that I've had to do since they've been back with me because of the abuse that they suffered. They think everybody's out to get them.
yeah, I understand that too. Now, sorry, just one last question with the girls. Did the doctor say that any of it caused enough damage to possibly, I know one of your daughters has already given you a grandbaby, but did any of the abuse cause issues to where it could prevent them from getting pregnant in the future? Or do we
Yes.
know? Huh?
Yes, my youngest daughter, Asia.
What was said about that?
Whatever happened in 2010, the vaginal wall and the cervix, the cervix was completely ruptured, so she doesn't have one, so they had to remove it.
Surgically?
Mm-hmm.
And what else?
So
what does that do for her now, or as an adult when how old is she right now?
Reneja's 14 now. 13, I'm sorry.
What will this do for her when she wants to have sex or wants to have a baby?
I have no idea. Well, she's sexually active. She's one of them kids that say she doesn't want kids anyway, but I'm pretty sure once she gets older, it'll change.
Now, okay, so moving on to the other kids, what any other abuse that happened?
Physical abuse. Zykia, my second daughter, she was struck in her head with. You remember those phones that you got the spin around dial and the
Yeah,
phone. You pick it up, the Mickey Mouse
yeah.
phone,
It's a
big
big
area.
phone. Heavy.
Mm-hmm. Well, the foster parent hit Zykia in the head with that. Zykia has a permanent scar. Broke Zykia's fingers. Said that she stole money out of her purse. Shaved Zykia's hair and her eyebrows bald because she didn't want Zykia to have more hair than the children in her home.
Wow.
Told my children they were the devil because we practice Islam. Just went through a whole lot with them.
Now, did they ever come? You had said physical, so did any of them ever have to go to the hospital for any of the abuse?
While they were in foster care, they were never hospitalized, but they were taken to urgent care on multiple occasions. Detroit Medical Hospital, Children's Hospital in Michigan. There was even hit and reports at Sinai Grace Hospital on my children. I got hold of those documents because of my uncle at the time being mayor of Michigan.
Yeah.
So
you get your kids back, and now tell me about what you guys suffered and struggled with after they returned home.
After they returned home, my children have severe issues with trusting people. My three daughters even turned against me within the last couple of years. Because once again, they were told and promised things that aren't going to happen by the system. They've seen that children in the system here in Pennsylvania, these kids get clothing allotments, these kids go on trips, these kids do this, they do that. And someone got in my daughter's heads and told them, my oldest having a baby and being pregnant now. Oh, if you leave home, you could get an independent living, which these programs aren't available anymore because of COVID and other problems.
Now,
but my was under the impression, hey, I say this, and this, and they're under the impression that my mom don't want me in a home. I go and stay here.
can you tell me you had said that they get promised things. What are these promises and who's telling them?
Like for instance, with the situation I'm going through now where I had to have DHS take the children because they were running away. Like the people in the neighborhood would get the children to do things that they're not supposed to do, go against what I say. And if they don't like what I say, they can stay here. And CPS here allows that. If your children don't want to be at home, they're not forced to stay at home.
That's interesting. So tell me one of the promises, like
my daughter left my house, she would get an independent living. My daughter's been homeless for 3 months now.
How old is she?
She's 17. That's the one with the baby and that's pregnant.
So she's living homeless with the baby, or do you have the baby?
No, they took the baby from me.
Who took the baby from you?
DHS. The baby was in my care from the time the baby was born. I don't know how it is in California, but if a child is born to a minor child in your home, you're responsible for that minor and the child until the child reaches the age where they're responsible or, emancipated. Well, that didn't happen with my child. When my child wanted to leave my home, she was allowed to take the baby, and they were allowed to place him where they wanted to place him, which I've had him since he was born. So that should have been illegal.
So CPS has that baby now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in foster care.
Mm-hmm. And they're threatening to take the new baby when she has it.
Are you able to fight to get the baby, being that it's your family?
Well, like I said, I got a lot of health issues. I have paralysis on the right side of my body due to 2 strokes and rickets. And I got a host of other medical problems: lupus, sickle cell, epilepsy, a host of problems. And well, I was told by other attorneys that health issues shouldn't depict whether a child can live in a home with their grandparents or their parents. So I'm going to fight.
It shouldn't. But I don't know if you listened to my story.
Right.
You did listen?
Yes.
Okay, I have significant health issues. I'm not even sure if I showed, but I have the tubes that come out of my stomach.
Okay. Now, is that a wound vac or?
No. One is this one right here feeds me. I plug it in and it feeds and hydrates me. And then this one, anything by mouth, so you see me drinking my water, but it empties out of there. It doesn't hydrate my body.
Okay. So you have is that the PI and GI tube?
A G and a J.
Okay, you had a G and J.
Yep, and then I have a port.
We're onesie, so you can't see mine.
What are yours?
I don't have the tubes anymore. I used to.
Okay. And then I have you can't see it. You can see the scar, but I have a port right here.
That's a mini port, yeah.
And then I've had several PIC lines and everything. But they tried to use my health against me and say that I'm too sick to take care of my kids. I'm in the hospital too much. You name it. And I'm like, I've never heard of a parent with cancer being told that they're too sick.
Right.
And, you know,
what about the people who go out and get HIV knowing that it's out there and they get to take care of their kids?
Yeah. So, well, goodness. I hope you get your grandson.
Yes.
Okay. And
this is another reason they give me a hard time, because this is how I'm forced to get around.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Huh?
I said there's nothing wrong with that. You can still.
They say that I can't they say that they're concerned that I can't control Sincere or chase Sincere if he runs in the street. I said, what handicapped person have their grandchild by the street?
I was just gonna say that, like.
I'm gonna be in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, DHS, CPS in Michigan even tried to get my children to lie and say we lived under a viaduct.
What do you mean?
A viaduct, the underpass of a bridge.
That's where you live?
Yeah, that's what they tried to get my children to say. Yes, that's my burger.
Now, what about the boys? You had said a couple times that the boys don't live with you anymore.
No, the girls don't. The boys are here.
Okay, the girls don't. So what happened with the other girls?
Okay, so a year ago, it started with my second daughter. She started running away to be with her friends and running away, drinking, smoking, stealing cars, breaking in people's houses. So
Wow.
I called DHS myself, CPS, and I let them know, you know, with my health issues, you know, I've already put her on the news. She was missing for a few days. I can't go out looking for her. I don't want to be penalized because I have other children in my home. So I'm
Right.
bringing you all's attention now. I'm not taking this child back in my home because she continues to run away. You all need to find somewhere to place her to protect herself from herself. Well, they let her go stay with who she wanted to stay with. The running around continued for a while. And then my youngest daughter, Ranasia, the 13-year-old, she started doing the same thing, hanging with the same people my second daughter was hanging with. They let her say she doesn't want to live in a home. They let her she made up a bunch of lies based off the lies that she heard from a previous case. And, you know, well, that didn't go nowhere because there's no way in my home, since all the other stuff had happened in Michigan, this is how I live life now. There's no privacy in my home, not for anyone, because won't nobody say my children are being abused. That's how I'm forced to live now, because if I don't have cameras up, I'm afraid of what someone might say, and I don't have proof. So now I have proof. Everything that goes on in my home, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's recorded.
Wow.
And nobody should have to live like that. I even have cameras in my bathrooms, and when the children use the bathrooms, we cover the lens so that their personals aren't exposed. But everything in this house is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I purposely send DHS, CPS copies of my video footage, because if someone calls and say, hey, Miss Bobbie punched her son in the face, she didn't do it on her property, because we would see it. They really actually get mad at me now because I'm more aware of what can and can't be done. So it's like torture to them to have to constantly get news feed of my live life, because I don't want nobody calling on me.
I understand. I understand the fear.
Have you met anyone like that yet that has went through those measures to quit being lied on? They put cameras in their home?
No. If I could afford it, I would do it.
Well, we're gonna have to link up. I'm gonna have to help you get some cameras.
Yes.
Have to help you get some cameras.
Well, how are the boys doing?
The boys are doing well, actually. Since the girls been out of my home, they're honor roll students. They're not giving me a hard time. You know, kids will be kids. You know, there's times where, you know, you're gonna always have to redirect, but it's not as intense as when the girls were here.
Yeah.
Because they don't have all their trauma building up on their problems that they have.
Yeah.
Because Ronell, he's almost like, he's to the point where the things that he went through in foster care, he feels as though everything happens to people for a reason. And he said on numerous occasions, he had rather it happen to him than somebody else, because everybody's not built to go through what he went through.
No.
So.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing. You have a very unique story, and you're a very strong person.
Thank you, and so are you. And you keep your head up. And are your babies back with you?
Yes.
Okay, that's so good.